What a goddamn dump. That's what I thought when I arrived at Stanley's office/bunker, whatever the hell he called it, to self-isolate while I awaited my COVID-19 test results. Let me slide over. As you can see, the test came back negative, and I was free to move about the cabin or around Frankfurt on October 16th, 2020. And yes, you're correct. That was 5 years or 5,000 years ago. I'm going through the archives, the remains, the remembrance of things past, long past. Writing the history of the apocalypse is more difficult than I imagined it would be. What did I do for 3 days in an office/bunker? I kept myself busy by cleaning. The place, as I said, was a dump, and creating palatable meals out of Stanley's stockpile of food that took up almost an entire wall. That guy was a prepper. Ramen noodles with canned vegetables and canned chicken, that was one of my triumphs. I surfed on my laptop, listened to music, Pornhubbed, cleaned some more. I scrubbed the grout between the tiles in the bathroom. I went through a whole issue of the Zeit newspaper, getting the filth off the windows, which must have accumulated over years. Yeah, most Americans at the time couldn't travel to Germany, but I had no problem because I had a German passport. My grandparents on my mother's side had to flee Germany in the 30s because they were gay and probably Jewish too. That's a really long story. And I fled to Germany because I didn't want to be around in the U.S. for the election. I had only expected to be gone for a few months. You can see the end unfurling in minute details from my ridiculous podcasts. Here's the podcast I did on the day I got my clean bill of health. This is I Am Wright, and welcome back to another edition of the Destino Dispatch podcast. Your 2 minutes or so of what's happening on our big ball. This week's sponsor is LBC 420, your number one stop for premier marijuana apparel, designed in California and designed while toking on California's best bud. Do people still talk like that? Have a bit of the Long Beach, California spirit wherever you are. Thanks for your support, LBC 420. Much appreciated. Okay, let's separate the bull from the bullpucky. Sounds like we're in a slaughterhouse. So the biggest news of the week, was it the New York Post report claiming an email showed that Hunter Biden, a crackpot, a crackhead, introduced his father, Joe Biden, vice president at the time, to a board member of Ukrainian energy firm Burisma, and that less than a year later, Vice President Biden pressured former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to fire the public prosecutor investigating Burisma? No. The big news was that Twitter and Facebook took it upon themselves to suppress the spread of the New York Post report on Hunter Biden and presidential candidate Joe Biden. These two Silicon Valley monopolies see the U.S. public as idiots unfit to judge the veracity of a story for themselves. Facebook said it would sic its fact-checkers on the story, which begs the question, who will be fact-checking the fact-checkers? Quis custodiet ipsos custodes? I hope I got that somewhat correct, the pronunciation. So if the emails on what is alleged to be Hunter Biden's laptop turn out to be real, there are also emails showing how Hunter earned millions in China for introductions. It would be evidence that the U.S. has become a government of men and not of laws, a tyranny. E pluribus banana republic? So the upcoming elections must be driving everybody nutty. Did you catch Nancy Pelosi on CNN being interviewed by Wolf Blitzer? Wolf's name might even be better than mine. Now, Nancy was her crazy self. Nothing extraordinary there. But what people in Destino likely found interesting is that Wolf was critical of her not working with President Trump to make a deal to get much-needed help to the American people. Didn't Wolf get the memo that CNN supports the Democrats? And was Wolf being an apologist for the Republican position, as Nancy claimed?
What I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist, and many of your colleagues apologists for the Republican position.
All Wolf did was simply take the other side. It was like being back in 1986. Why 1986, you ask? Because in 1987, the FCC repealed the Fairness Doctrine. TV and radio broadcasters had to cover issues of public importance under the Fairness Doctrine, and they also had to air opposing views on those issues. Opposing views on an issue? You gotta time travel back to the 80s if you want that in media. Wolf was actually doing his job. And sad news. Fred Dean passed away on October 14th from complications of COVID-19. Mr. Dean joined the Niners in 1981, the most magical year for San Francisco's fans, especially old fans like me. The Niners would not have won Super Bowl 16 without Fred Dean. What a great name. And they wouldn't have even made it to the Super Bowl. Rest in peace, Mr. Dean, and thank you for the memories. The thought of the week comes to us from Mark Twain. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. Be strong, Destino, and wear your masks, just in case. Let's not be infecting older gentlemen like Fred Dean. Take care. Frankfurt was cold and gray, and poverty seemed to have found its way into everything, even into the creases on people's faces. Frankfurt was also a COVID-19 hotspot, a Risikogebiet. But I believed it was better to be away from the U.S. for a while, and the future would prove that I had been clear-eyed. Stanley was in Tirana, Albania, doing God only knows what. He said I could stay in his bunker as long as I wanted because he wouldn't be returning for at least a year. He was on some type of spiritual quest by the sound of it. So I flubbed off the 2 classes I was teaching at Destino City College, English 103, Advanced Composition and Critical Thinking. I was teaching that. And English 131, Introduction to World Literature 1. Yeah, I gave them to George, who needed more hours. Us teachers didn't make shit for money, and he was poor. I was also poor, but I had never really cared about money. I didn't have money. But back then, I had hope. Hope that we'd eventually get back to normal. How wrong I was.